to today's session. Today's webinar is all about application modernization, transformation to revitalize your enterprise IT. So we're going to be looking at that in detail and what are the ways and means to do it, and pros and cons, how to go about it, and how does it help everyone to ensure their business investments are taken care and of course achieve all the objectives that's been highlighted as part of this project. So let's get started with the webinar. Just going to give you a quick intro about YASH, and before that I would like to just give you a brief about what this webinar is about. We have a small introduction about the presenter, then we have an introduction about YASH. Then we would step into application reengineering. As to why would you look at application reengineering, you can call it as application modernization or application reengineering. Both are more or less the same, but the objective is going to be the similar one. Then we will talk about one quick project, which is a US-based company, Stools. We would showcase as to how and what the application reengineering or modernization activity that was carried out in this project, and how did it help the customer. And subsequently, we will talk about other customers who have opted for this activity and the advantage that they have been deriving out of it. And post that, at the end, we would have a Q&A for everyone so that we could clarify doubts about the webinar or about the entire process altogether. Okay. Let's get into introduction. This is me, Sunil Benny. I've been with YASH for quite some time, and I've been working with Microsoft technology, especially with the application modernization projects. We have a poll question. So I believe everyone's answered the first one. Can you help us answer the second one too? That's going to give us insight about how many of you are having a legacy application. The first question was related to your enterprise infrastructure. The second question is related to a legacy application that's part of your system. Okay, so we have our poll results. Looks like most of us have multi platforms in their infrastructure. Some of you have Microsoft, SAP, some of you have all three technologies, and a few of you have pretty much everything under the IT sun. When it comes to second question, okay, that's interesting. So approximately 6 out of 10 are looking at a few legacy applications where you have some sort of a business objective because of which you cannot move out of legacy application, or you cannot transform it. But we would address all those queries here. We would help you identify as to how and when and how, where you would be able to identify those applications, and there are ways and means to handle the issues related to that. Let's get on the webinar. Just a quick intro about YASH. YASH is a global company. We have been in IT field for almost 20 years now. We have around 3,000 employees, 3,000 to 3,500 employees offshore, and 1,000 employees on site, including US, Germany, Scandinavian market, and of course Australia and New Zealand. This is a quick snapshot of YASH offerings. If you look at this YASH offering, you would see a lot of offerings being provided here. But when you look at the entire IT gamut, we pretty much part of every platform. That includes SAP, Oracle, IBM solutions, Microsoft, of course, and a cloud new initiative that YASH been working for a couple of years is something related to the cloud. So we are also early entry players when it comes to cloud services, Amazon Web Services, as well as Microsoft Azure and Office 365. If you look at the other side of it, the package, we deal end-to-end servicing. When we talk about that, we have verticalized, specialized services and application and products that we support to a customer. So if you have any questions, I can take something on this slide at the end of the webinar. Okay, no questions. Great. Let's go. So what makes YASH, right? So this is just a brief picture we wanted to showcase as to what we are and why and what's been our DNA. So when you look at DNA, we have been customer-centric. You know, when you talk about customer-centric, our management is open to discussions on any scale, any size of the engagements. Flexibility. We have a flexible environment in terms of SLAs, in terms of contracts, in terms of transformation of businesses and mitigation of risk. From the financial perspective, of course, you look at YASH as a company which is 100% debt-free. So, you know, we have enough resources to start a new initiative with you. If that needs a new incubation center, you know, YASH has the strength to go about it. And likewise, you know, people standards with people's depth of services come into picture. From the process maturity perspective, you know, YASH is quite a new company. Of course, when you talk about 20 years old, it's still a new entry in terms of other services. But when you look at process maturity, we have pretty much covered the entire gamut of process maturity when it comes to CMM level 3, when it comes to ITIL specific based teams. We have teams which are certified and working on ITSM standards, especially for our support customers. And of course, we have our custom and proprietary methodologies, accelerated frameworks for our projects. So overall, YASH gives you an end-to-end support, not just from a technical point of view, but also from the services perspective. Now, to the core of the webinar, why do we need an application modernization, right? So everyone's been talking about, you know, you hear a lot of CXOs, CIOs in these CIO meets talk about application issues that they're going through, especially related to the legacy, right? Businesses have quite a few legacy applications which are core to their operation, and they don't want to tinker around it, nor touch or downgrade it, or, you know, see it offline for upgrade. So there are quite a lot of challenges when it comes to maintaining a legacy application, right? So you have a trade-off in terms of managing those applications. So when you're looking at trade-off, you have a higher maintenance cost that's involved with it. You have a shortage of skill, because when you have an application which doesn't have a support, you face shortage of skill. So that's how you call it as legacy application. You might have set up or implemented the application quite some time back, almost a decade back, which would mean that you don't have the vendor who had helped you set it up at this moment, or the resources are moved out on the vendor. So you have a legacy application which is core to your business, but you are not able to tweak it with the current business challenges, the needs, and to the requirements of the customers in the current phase. So what do? So do you come up with solutions? Of course, this is a perception that that's been there with almost all the IT folks, especially at the CXO level. They are looking at ways and means to ensure their business continuity, as well as look at upgrading their legacy system or modernizing their upgrading system, right? So the modernization process is basically a two-stage process. You're looking at application infrastructure modernization, or you're looking at process itself, which is dependent on it. So with the addition of new customers, with the addition of new technologies, with new trends coming to picture, you have quite a few process engineering requirements that needs to be tweaked onto the application. So you have trade-off where you're not able to do it, right? You're not able to manage it. So with our experience, we would like to offer a couple of options, 3 options, in fact, which would help you narrow down your approach. One of the approaches could help you out, and some of the approaches have trade-offs in terms of downtime, or in terms of cost factor, or in terms of a new technology being involved itself. So let's look at it. You know, here I'm just presenting and just showcasing 3 various possible options when you're looking at application or process engineering, right? So the first one, the easiest and the most preferred one for all the organization, but yes, of course, because when you look at business continuity, you may not be able to look at option number 1, because it doesn't help you move smoothly. But at the end, you may have a small downtime in terms of a service level breakage or inaccessibility to the application, but eventually you would see a final environment being upgraded. So first things first, build migration tools. Of course, most of the migration tools have to be custom because your legacy application itself is a custom application. Otherwise, you wouldn't be using it all these days, right? So you need some services who understand the legacy application or the legacy platform or the legacy system in a complete picture and give you a custom migration tool that's going to help you move the data, the processes, the business requirements that are there to the new system, right? So you build that center layer, which is the migration tool. The option number 2, of course, without migrating. So what I'm going to do, so at this moment for the next 3 years, you see and dependency on the system, and you don't want to, move out of the current environment or the infrastructure or the setup. So what do? You involve a vendor who understands the current technology or the legacy application and would be able to help you out with extending the existing application. I've just highlighted 4 here, which is process enhancers, resource task management. I believe these are the 4 requirements that is needed from the business perspective for them to be able to utilize the 6 legacy system better, right? So when you talk about business tools, you have new requirements, new business setup that have been come up, but eventually your code generation system, which is legacy system, that's I'm just giving an example, remains the same. So what do? You add new business entities, but there are new business processes with the new entities, and eventually the code management system is still the old one. So you need to inculcate or you need to ensure that new business processes or functional tools are supported. So you within the existing system, you build these solutions which will help you add more business functional tools. There are a lot of new processes that are added with the invent of the new age technology and the customer expectations. So you need to cut down your process in such a way that the customer service is given a prime importance, be it internal, external customer, right? So, and then of course, quite a lot of resource and task management. This does not mean the task which is related to a workflow, but it can also mean a task or an activity related to the system itself, right? When you're running on IBM mainframes or legacy application like COBOL, your system is tweaked or being configured to work with the older setup, right? So how do you move out onto a newer platform, be it a quad-core environment or 64-bit environment, without losing the functionality? So that's a back-end management from the device management perspective or from the hardware software configuration perspective. So that's where your resource task manager comes into picture. So you need to have a vendor who understands both the sides, right? Not just the application, but also the backend hardware on which it's sitting and running. Data management is also a crucial task because data management allows you to connect not just one, but multiple applications, because this legacy, in this scenario, we're talking about code management system, maybe should be talking to more than one system, like an ERP, which is a separate thing, which helps you do the invoicing, which helps you do the management of the product, which helps you do management of the resources to the manufacturing unit or to the project itself, right? So you have a lot of data flows between these systems. So how do you manage your data well? How do you manage your data packets that have been sent across these different systems? Because your legacy system is there and it has to work with these other applications. So how do you manage those? So basically, you need a team or a vendor which understands all these 4, not just 4, but there are many more, but these are the 4 major activities that needs to be looked at when you're looking at enhancing the existing legacy system. The third option would be, applying a band-aid. Basically, when we talk about that, what we mean is you cannot tweak the existing legacy system, but at least you can build a layer, a second layer, an outer layer on top of the legacy application, which would help complete certain tasks before it goes to application layer, right? So in the earlier format, you might have a runner process which needs a workflow on approval of a specific system. So it's a 3-stage workflow that's being run in legacy, right? So, but with the current needs, you need 15-level workflow. So How do you want to put all 15 level workflows within the application because you cannot enhance it, so your options are limited. What would you do? You would take care of all of the remaining 12 workflows outside the legacy application and then ensure its completion. Once these 12 are completed either in a positive or negative node, then you transfer the respective details to the legacy application. So your legacy application is not overloaded because of new processes, because of new workflows, but still it's running on its own, right? So likewise, you can build the second layer not just for the business tools or workflows, but also for the data management perspective or from resource or task management. Of course, the process enhancers is an activity where you need to spend a lot of time. There are new processes that have been implemented due to compliance, due to needs of the business, due to customer demands. So there are quite a lot of factors which would drive you to do enhancements and add-ons to the system. So basically, you're looking at a solution which helps you in possible three ways. Every solution has pros and cons. So as you know, that migration tool needs downtime, but eventually you'll be able to get to a new system, right? So that's the positive out of it. The enhancement, the positive would be you're able to enhance the existing application to its maximum capacity, but there will be trade-off in terms of business processes that can be implemented, right? There are a few technologies which may not be supported at all when looking at COBOL. You don't have new technologies that support in the old format, so there might be some trade-off in that. When it comes to building a second layer, there might be trade-off related to your hardware management, maybe your process management, maybe related to the application itself. So it all depends on as to what your legacy application can handle and what's the second layer that you're building. So in many cases, building a second layer works out well because it saves them time. It doesn't allow any downtime. So business continuity is taken care of, right? So there are a few examples that I'm talking about today on the webinar from the live project perspective. Some of them are in the phase one, which is option one, which is building a migration tool. A couple of them are in the format of a third stage where we are building a secondary outer layer to cover and manage the new add-ons rather than enhance the system itself. So it's not that the customers do not prefer the enhancement, but it all depends on the need of the hour. So at this moment, I haven't seen any large projects on scale, which is method 2, but I have seen quite a lot of projects on method 1 and method 3. Okay. So, we started off the webinar with an issues. But when you look at one of these three possible solutions and you work around that, eventually you would come to a stage where you could see advantages that being provided to you. So what are the advantages, right? So when you look at advantages, it helps you look at your an application transition in an SOA manner, which is the standard methodology. When you look at dependability of the resources which are located across the region or the countries, it helps you manage them better because the new processes are taken care of, right? So you're able to build new controls. You're able to take care of new processes that's required with addition of new resources or new locations or new countries, because every country has a different process, has a different activity sets that need to be taken care of. So you would be able to build that. So likewise, when you look at it, every aspect of your process engineering or application modernization has pros and cons, and of course, it helps you gain control of your investment, plan your investment. Some of them might be a patch kind of activity, but still, it helps your business run, and you could have enough time to decide when to move out the legacy system and then bring in the new system, transition into a new one. So here, what we would be talking about a couple of projects which we just recently accomplished. Two of them are ongoing support basis. Two companies, very famous companies in US, tools, and we're talking about Stanley Black & Decker. Now, Stools, from Stools' perspective, the platform, I think they had a mixed platform, but we are talking only the Microsoft and SAP, the entire landscape detail. But yes, the project was related to Microsoft and SAP integration. So we worked on, which is a project number 1, Stools. Here, we moved on from a .NET legacy application. We moved it to SharePoint, and then we integrated SharePoint closely, extensively with SAP. So we're going to see as to how we did that. Of course, the durations looks too small, but it's a 7 calendar month. It involved more than 20 to 25 man-month of effort, and not just 2 or 3 people, more than 8 to 10 people involved at different stages. And that's how it was executed. So similarly, we had SPD, which is Stanley Black & Decker. The platform was similar, but there wasn't an add-on. We had a legacy application built around .NET, but we did not move the .NET application completely out of the system, but we kept the .NET application as it is and built a second layer on SharePoint to take care of it. Right, so we've been looking at Project 1's tools. You're looking at option number 3, SPD, Stanley Black & Decker. You're looking at option number 3 that was used by the customer. Yeah. So from the first project perspective, stills, right? So if you look at, if you understand the platform, the complexity, the .NET, of course, it is easily migration. You can migrate it, but when it comes to moving .NET to SharePoint, it's basically building an entire new application on SharePoint. So there was enough time. So it was a parallel run. So we took care of all the .NET application. We listed out all the objectives and the new activities that needs to be covered as part of the business process onto the SharePoint. The advantage of moving on to the SharePoint, why it was chosen, was the customer already had SharePoint infrastructure as part of their intranet and internet or extranet portal. So we having seen that they already have extranet and intranet on SharePoint, so it would make sense to use the existing infrastructure, right? You don't need to invest in new technology at all or new licenses. Of course, they just need to add new licenses when it comes to utilizing this, but they don't need to buy entire new set of licenses, just add-on licenses. If they had around 1,900 licenses on SharePoint, so they had to add a few hundreds more to take care of this project. So it's better than bringing a new technology and new process completely and wait time of 2 years. And this was ready to go to market with them. So what we built basically, SAP is a very good ERP system which was been there for quite some time, but they didn't have an option to upgrade the SAP to current version, but they ensured that their objective is met through SharePoint. So what we helped them is build the system .NET legacy application on top of SharePoint, which took control of code creation, submittal package, process code, process order, customer data management, and of course the good features of SharePoint is discussion, right? So you have a community web page where people can talk about a few issues or a few ways and means to resolve any particular transaction-related query or a process-related query. So when it comes to the landing page, of course, this doesn't look like SharePoint, right? So the SharePoint was highly customized here. And if you could see, the beauty of it was that these are all GUI-based icons. So it's not just the textual information that was used here. Of course, a lot of options were GUI-based. So you could select any of the business functions here, and subsequently you will be able to go ahead. So what we did, we basically looked at code creation, things that can be managed out of SAP without adding new licenses on either of the system, but only few licenses onto the SharePoint. So it did not create a rift or did not create a load onto the SAP system, because the SAP system was integrated using the Duet concept. So we used Duet as well as backend BizTalk server to ensure the integration was tight and the details were not lost out in transition. So When you look at the screens, I think this would showcase that the project was successfully completed with giving the customer what they wanted, right? They wanted flexibility in terms of data entry. They wanted flexibility in terms of GUI-based selection because that wasn't available in any other applications. So SharePoint provided that. You don't have to be completely on textual form, so you could see the image and accordingly choose and run your activity set there. So here we have an image, a screenshot of a product selection based on the GUI. Subsequently, we have a second level, third level of product selection based on the GUI. So you have a dependent summary list, a dependent item list that have been provided based on the selection. And of course, everyone has seen the quotation. So quotation template can be customized. So it was just a quick import of the quotation template that they wanted. Of course, this is the importance of this screen is basically when you look at the order management, you need to have a live update, right? So when you talk about live update, the system should automatically update and then let you know what's the status of each activity that would be visible under his or her control, because every user had their own access rights or control rights. So based on their control rights, the details of the order were updated real time. So they didn't have to punch in and wait for update or refresh or call up anyone. They just used to get the updates quick, live. Pretty much similarly with the order status, you could see the same activity. So when you look at different, of course, I could share around another 100 screenshots, but this application was very extensive. But we wanted to showcase only a few sets of screenshots, which actually showcases the complexity and the highly customized environment that was provided to tools to cover this project. The key achievements and positives out of this project was basically, one of them is the social integration where SharePoint plays a bigger role. You have world-class social infrastructure networking, which would help you connect with other colleagues of the organization and ensure that everyone's connected. You were able to track the delivery and the shipment real time. Basically, that's what we wanted. The customer also wanted that because they would like to see the updates being done on a live basis, not just on the data entry based on that, but on the access control based. We're coming to the second one. So when we started with SPD, we started off, let me just give you a brief about it. So our engagement with SPD has been going on for quite some time, for almost 8 years plus. When we started with SPD, we started on a small scale. We started off with 1 or 2 resources, so offshore support, providing offshore support on small applications. But when they saw our support services and the engagement and the options that we provide to other customers and our testimonials, they asked us to work on bigger projects. So subsequently, we worked on not just on open source, but Microsoft, and of course, we started off with a small scale open source and support. Then we moved on to SharePoint, Microsoft, and of course, the project ended up with being a large scale SAP implementation and support. So we are the support partner, premier support partner as of today. From Microsoft perspective, you could see that we have been working with them closely on PMO. We helped them set up the PMO, and we are currently running a support for the PMO. So their PMO office is supported by YASH, and the project managers within SPD are also part of YASH. So pretty much we are providing PMO support not just from tool perspective, but also from the process perspective. We have a large AMS engagement with them, which has been going quite for some time, almost 4 years plus. Different stage of AMS, we have a flexible SLA. We have a dedicated team on specific location-based support, and we have a flexible engagements. When you talk flexible engagements, we have a dedicated team at one place, but on the other side of the business, we also have shared services based support for them. So it's not just the dedicated 20, 30, or 100 people, but yes, it's based on the need of the hour, based on the project, based on the location, based on the business unit, the support and the project activities are provided. Of course, when you look at the time zones, which is very important, right, for a global company like Stanley, you expect a global support. So what we usually say, we provide them support from sunset to sunrise. So we pretty much cover the entire gamut. We support the Japanese, the region, the Japanese entity to the US. So we pretty much cover the entire 24 cycle. With all these inputs, I believe you all have come to know about the positives and what are the challenges that you would see when you want to look at application modernization or process engineering, because there will be challenges, but the opportunity and the positives of getting onto those projects would be more than the challenges that you could, because challenges will be one or the other way, be part of every project. But the positive sort of getting onto this application modernization or process engineering would help you stabilize the system better, achieve business continuity in the long run, and ensure that your infrastructure is up to date when it comes to technology, when it comes to processes, when it comes to demands of the business at that. So you saw that transition, right? 3-4 years back, hardly few customers were there online, but now everyone's moving to online. So you don't see complete transition at this moment, because the technology online also has few limitations. So it all depends. Many of the customers are looking at the hybrid environment. They have partially on-premise and partially online. So core operations are still continued in the on-premise environment, but an operation activity which can be pushed onto the web and can be managed are pretty much moved onto the online. So with the current activity and with the current objectives, what you could also achieve is basically you are spending quality time on strategic initiatives and business demands rather than trying to fix the issue, right? So you get more time to work on the actual work that your business would need you for, and that the business needs to grow. You are actually looking at mitigating the risk in terms of application support that's being made available. When you look at this engagement, you also mitigate the risk of a downtime, which is crucial especially when the organizations are growing by leaps and bounds in the current scenario. You're moving to new technology, you're moving to new phase of the business itself. So you don't want to see any type of downtime because of legacy application. So you are concealing yourself from such issues. Of course, with this process, what you could do, you could help continuity of the intelligence that you gather, which is basically intellectual intelligence and the functional knowledge from generation to generation. So you're moving from current set of users to new set of users. There is an intellectual property right, and that's being transitioned properly, smoothly. You don't see an abrupt end of the experience that's being lost, but you could see a smooth transition of understanding of the technology as well as the resources too. So I'm sure that in this last 40-45 minutes, you were able to see the entire picture of the application modernization and process engineering, and I would be now taking all your questions related